In this lesson, we're going to focus on using whose and whose in adjective clauses. In our last lessons on adjective clauses, which are a form of complex sentences, we looked at the basics. We looked at when to use commas and some of the words that can start an adjective clause, like that, which, who, when, and where. For example, the sun, which we depend on for life, is a fairly simple form of hydrogen and helium. In that sentence, the sun, there's only one of them. We know which one we're referring to. So when describing it, we would use commas. I don't want a dog that sheds. If we stopped with, I don't want a dog, well, that's just not true. I want a dog, but I don't want a dog that sheds. That sheds is the adjective clause, and it's necessary to define what kind of dog we want, so no comma. In this lesson, we'll be focusing on using whose or whose. We pronounce them exactly the same, so it can be tricky to really hear the difference between the usage. Let's start with whose. There are actually two meanings that whose can be. Whose can be who is or who has. You need to think about the meaning of the verb to understand what whose means. For example, I'm going to talk to the person who's making too much noise. In this sentence, whose is who is. What it means is who is making too much noise. In the next sentence, I'm going to talk to the person who's left her bag under the table. In this sentence, whose means who has, because it means who has left her bag under the table. Whose can also mean possession. Here you need to think about the relationship between the two nouns on each side of whose. Does the first noun own the second noun? Let's take a look at some examples. I'm going to talk to the person whose phone keeps ringing. So the person owns the phone. Or you could say the phone belongs to the person. So whose is showing possession. I want a dog whose fur doesn't shed. Here, the dog owns the fur, or you could say the fur belongs to the dog. So here, a dog whose fur is the possessive form of an adjective clause. I prefer shopping at a store whose produce is mainly organic. So here the store owns the produce, or the produce belongs to the store. So whose is that W-H-O-S-E. A couple important notes. Whose cannot be used in the past to mean who was or who had, so you cannot contract to that. For example, I'm going to talk to the person who was absent yesterday. We could not say who's absent yesterday. Whose only means present. In 1800, a person who was traveling to the US met many hardships. We cannot contract who was to whose. In 1901, a person who had left their country to come to the US probably first came to Ellis Island in New York. So clearly, who'd can't be contracted to whose. Second note, who are cannot be contracted. I'm going to talk to the people, so that's plural, who are making too much noise. We don't say who're, nope. And it cannot be replaced with whose. You have to write it out completely. If you would like to have some further study options, you can look at those two links below. I hope this helps.